Hey everyone, we are very excited for this late April show because we've got NBA playoff basketball to discuss, a little bit of scandalous action before the NFL draft, along with, of course, the NFL draft. We won't be doing our big show this year, but we still want to bring you a little bit of a preview before Thursday's big night. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this already off-the-rails episode of the Sports Ballers Podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by Corey and Evan. As always, fellas, how are we doing?
Can't complain too much. It's, got a little bit of cold weather yesterday, but it's turning, and the rest of this week and next week should be actually really nice, which I'm excited for. We might actually have a spring here.
Yeah, doing good.
All right, cool. So we've got quite a bit to get to this week. We've got NBA playoffs, as we said in the preview, and by we, I mean me, because that's what I do. But we've also got the NFL draft coming up, so we're going to discuss that. As we said in the preview and as we've alluded to, we're not doing our full live stream of the first round, unfortunately, this year. Just couldn't quite make it happen.
Whose fault is that?
Well, partially my fault, but also you don't seem very prepared, Corey. So
if I had known that we were going to be doing it, I probably would have put more time into it.
But you would have been grinding because when I mentioned it, you were way behind schedule. So
that's true.
Yeah. So,
but I've done this before.
Oh, I know. As have I. We are expert procrastinators here on the Sports Ballers.
What was it? 2 years ago, either 2 or 3 years ago. We kind of entered draft season, and I decided that was when I was going to binge watch all of Game of Thrones, and then I gave myself like 3 weeks to grind tape before it was time for the draft.
Watching Game of Thrones
grinding
instead.
Game of Thrones, yeah, which was good tape to watch.
And I made it in time because I had some pretty good notes for that draft.
You did. That was a successful draft for Corey, so we'll give him that. And Evan was grinding tape 10 minutes before we got started here, so
yeah.
So we're doing our best. But anyway, basketball, let's talk about that a little bit because we discussed the NBA playoffs briefly last week just because we didn't really think there would be that much interesting stuff in the first round, and so far what we thought was interesting has been interesting, and maybe what we thought wasn't going to be interesting has been a little more interesting than we thought. The Detroit Pistons are down 1-0 to the Orlando Magic, which was a little bit of a surprise. We talked about how Corey and I potentially thought that the Charlotte Hornets could give the Pistons a series if, and most people believed when, they would come through the playoff or the play-in, but they just no-showed against the Magic in the, I guess you would call it the 8-9 matchup, the game to decide who was the 8th seed, and the Magic ended up taking the spot even though they've been anemic all season and being a massive disappointment. I think I picked their coach for Coach of the Year, and
oh dear.
I mean,
but then
might have saved his job, but he was definitely on the chopping block.
But then you go into that game one. Was that last night?
It was 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago, and the Magic won against the Pistons.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely interested to see where that series goes. Banchero had a pretty solid game for the Magic, and it wasn't a particularly close outcome. They won by double digits against the 1 seed. So I don't think that Orlando can actually win that series ultimately. I think that the Pistons are going to wake up after that game 1 loss, but we'll see.
Yeah, a bit of a wake-up call for them. And also a note is that Cade Cunningham, who was Detroit's best player, missed a big chunk of the end of the season with a collapsed lung. So, he's recovering from a pretty significant injury.
He still seemed to do fine.
Yeah.
Did he score 40 or he came close to it at least in that game?
He seemed
1?
like he was the only guy that played well for the Pistons in that game, which I don't expect that to continue because the Pistons do have a good young core of talent. But, it's just interesting to see how that's going to unfold. Also, notable, Cade Cunningham filled out, I guess you can put in a waiver to get an exception for the NBA's 65 game rule, where you have to play 65 plus games in order to be eligible for postseason awards like all NBA teams, MVP, things like that, because of his injury that he suffered with regards to having a collapsed lung,
Right.
which I thought was kind of bizarre because, yes, it's a bad injury, but the whole point is you're supposed to play the games. Like, I get, like, Luka Doncic did the same thing.
What's the point of having the rule if you can just sign the waiver to
So,
bypass it?
on one hand, I understand the idea of having a waiver because if you have a significant injury, but like when you played, you were incredibly impactful. Maybe you still deserve to have recognition for at least second team, if not first team All NBA, depending on how impactful you were. That said, where do you draw that line? Because let's say you have a player who misses the last 20 games of the season because of a severe injury, or let's make it 17 games, right? You're right on that line, right? You miss 17 games due to an injury that takes you from the 82 down to 65 exactly, right? Were you doing any sort of load management earlier in the season? Did you have a game here and there, like 3 games where you sat out? Like, how much of it is your fault? If you had, not sat out those games, then you would have maybe hit that number even with the injury, right? So I think you have to. It opens a can of worms where you have to kind of get into the weeds. And is it really worth it? Do you really want to do that to yourselves if you're one of the people who is making a decision on those waivers?
Well, it's go ahead, Evan.
Well, I mean, particularly if it's a new rule, right? Like, you don't want to make a new rule that also comes with an openable can of worms, right? Like, that's not a very good rule. So, you have to play at least 65 games, right? Like, I don't foresee too many exceptions to this rule.
If you're going to make exceptions, you may as well just not have the rule and then make your decisions on the All NBA teams. And if a player missed more games than you feel they should be allowed to, and because of that they were missing some of the counting stats or whatever, or the impact on the season, then you just don't vote for them. And if enough people feel that way, they won't vote for them. They won't get that recognition. And if enough people say, yeah, they missed a lot of games, but they were amazing when they were on the court and they still deserve this recognition, then there you go.
Yeah, and it's interesting, though, the reason I brought up this exemption is Cade Cunningham earned, I guess, the exemption, but Anthony Edwards missed a lot of time at the end of the season with a knee injury. No exemption for him. These are basketball-related injuries, same and same. I don't see what the difference is. I understand why Luka Doncic got an exemption because he played 64 games. He missed 2 games because he had to fly halfway across the world for the birth of his child. That, I think, is a different circumstance than I missed games because I got hurt. The whole point of it is you're supposed to play the games. But it also creates another problem because the NBA took a while to approve or rule on these appeals, and that bled into the play-in game. Voting is supposed to be done at the end of the regular season, period. That didn't happen here because people had to wait to find out who they're allowed to vote for, and then you had guys like Con Knuppel, who is a Rookie of the Year candidate, play like absolute doo-doo for the Hornets and get benched and almost lose the game. Maybe that impacts my voting, whether I voted for him or Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Or if I've got a Defensive Player of the Year ballot and I've got Draymond Green out here putting Kawhi Leonard and Alcatraz in an elimination game, maybe that affects the way I vote for him on my first team defensive lineup.
And they can tell the voters till they're blue in the face, don't allow these games to impact you. But if that's the last thing you saw, you can't. You
The
literally
most important
cannot
game of the season,
like
the last one you saw, that's impactful.
dismiss that from your mind.
Yeah, and that's why they make you submit your vote Sunday night when the regular season ends. So that's kind of, again, it's ridiculous, and the NBA kind of wanted to have exemptions for this because they don't want to have some ridiculous-looking all-NBA teams where there's dudes who are like maybe a top 40 player in the league being treated like they're a top 15 player in the league because that's just moronic. But, it was...
Why not just have it'd be a lot, but why not have voters submit 2 ballots? One for if this player has the exemption, and one for...
How about just get rid of the rule because it didn't solve anything. It just created more problems. But anyway,
that is certainly
or
fair.
follow the rule.
Yeah.
Or don't make any exceptions.
I don't know. The whole thing's dumb. Anyway, more basketball stuff to discuss. The most interesting series that I think we both agreed with, Corey, was the Nuggets versus Timberwolves series, which is now tied 1-1.
Yeah, Minnesota with a big one yesterday. Anthony Edwards had a solid game, 30 points.
Yeah, it's a big deal. There was some histrionics, as usual, in
the NBA.
And the
there's
NBA,
always histrionics.
Yeah, there's always something going on.
It's never about basketball. It's always about the other stuff.
Well, especially in the regular season, but it does bleed into the postseason as well. But so there's some smack talk from Jaden McDaniels, basically saying that nobody on the Nuggets can play defense, which, I mean, might not be wrong, but still definitely bulletin board material there. But anyway, that series is 1-1, and we've mentioned these teams have matched up in the playoffs multiple times in recent memory, and the most memorable was when the defending champion Nuggets were knocked off by the Minnesota Timberwolves in the second round.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I don't want to say it took the mystique off of Nikola Jokic, because obviously he's still the best player in the league, but it made it clear that Nuggets team is very beatable.
And it also, I mean, that was also one of the things that like really kind of gave legitimacy to the Timberwolves and kind of turned our heads, made us pay attention to them. And obviously Anthony Edwards was already a very good player, but I think it elevated his status within the NBA pretty significantly.
Yeah, and again, he made the conference finals the next year with the Timberwolves. There's talk about Chris Finch, who I have complained about on this podcast multiple times, whether he's on the hot seat because if they stagnate or regress this year and can't get out of the first round, then they might consider moving on from him.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes.
I mean, at that point, the Timberwolves kind of felt like, they were just going to be like the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant. And the Grizzlies at least took a step beyond that.
Did they?
I think so.
The Grizzlies, they never made the conference finals.
No, they haven't made a conference finals, but like,
where are they at this year?
Did they even make the playoffs?
No, they're in Cancun. Like they're they didn't make the play-in.
Sorry, I'm saying the Timberwolves took a step beyond the Grizzlies.
Oh, I thought you were saying the other way around.
No.
What?
No, I'm saying that before the Timberwolves won that series against the Nuggets and add some legitimacy to themselves and to Anthony Edwards as a bona fide star in the NBA, they felt a lot like the Grizzlies with Ja Morant. And that series really elevated them beyond that status to me.
Also helps that Anthony Edwards doesn't play with guns. And
that helps too. And is actually a likable person.
He gets every woman he meets pregnant, but he can handle that off the court on his own with all his money. He's not contributing to the pervasive gun culture in America, which is not something that Adam Silver wants to deal with. So, but anyway, I don't really think there's a whole lot else going on. I mean, the Rockets-Lakers series is kind of it hasn't really gotten out of its blocks just because everybody's injured. But LeBron dominated, so that was fun.
Yeah, Lakers won game 1 on was that Friday that they played, or and then they played tonight. So we'll see how that one goes. The only series that has actually gone to 2 games where somebody's up 2-0 so far is Cleveland, and they played yesterday. They beat Toronto, so they're up 2-0. Yeah, I mean, we're still very early in the process of these playoffs. The Oklahoma City Thunder demolished the Suns on Sunday. They beat them by 35 points.
I stopped paying attention about halfway through the second quarter. Yeah, Evan. I was joining Evan
just now,
watching something else at that point. So,
and then I spent half of the Spurs Trailblazers game on Sunday thinking that I was watching Suns Trailblazers because the Spurs uniforms make absolutely no sense.
The Fiesta uniforms they were wearing,
but it's not even the Fiesta uniforms. Like these are not the uniforms that you saw them wearing back when like Tony Parker was their point guard.
Oh, the Tostitos looking uniforms?
Yeah, this was not that. These were like mostly black with a little bit of color in the middle that looked a lot like some sort of throwback-ish Suns uniforms.
Ugh. The NBA needs to tighten up these uniforms with
these
colors. Right? Like, if every team wears all the colors, like what are we even doing?
Rashonda briefly thought that the Spurs were the Trailblazers, which was hilarious because you're just watching Trailblazers versus Trailblazers.
And the home team's got to wear white. Like that's come on. Like that was the thing forever. Home team wears white.
Or at least very light colors. If you want to do the Fiesta uniforms at home, like you can have the pink and whatever, that's okay.
They were at home.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to football because we do have some news to discuss before the draft this Thursday. Let's talk a little bit about some of the trades we've seen or maybe have heard about. We know about Dexter Lawrence being traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah. They surrendered a first-round pick for Dexter Lawrence, which is, a substantial haul for a player of Dexter Lawrence is good. Is he worth a first-round pick? Probably, but as we mentioned sort of before the show, he's replacing Trey Hendrickson, who was a superior pass rusher.
So
Well, they don't play the same position. Like Dexter Lawrence is a DT, isn't he? Right? Like Hendrickson's out on the edge.
I don't think Lawrence is a defensive tackle. I could be wrong, but a first-round pick would be a ridiculous price to pay for a defensive tackle.
I mean,
Would you rather have spent $100 million on Albert Hainsworth than a first-round pick on
Albert
Dexter
Hainsworth?
Lawrence?
He is a defensive tackle. That makes this even worse. Because for the Bengals. Because this is a situation where you are essentially replacing Trey Hendrickson with Dexter Lawrence, regardless of them playing different positions. Because Trey Hendrickson was your best defensive player by far. Dexter Lawrence is probably now your best defensive player, right?
Yeah.
Who else?
It's not exactly a lineup of studs.
Exactly. I'm not necessarily saying for sure, but he probably is because he's actually a good player, and they don't have a lot of those on that end of the football.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a defensive tackle, so he's not going to be as impactful as Trey Hendrickson could be. You didn't get anything for Trey Hendrickson because he signed with Baltimore as a free agent.
Yeah.
And you just gave up a first-round pick that you could have used to get a younger, potentially more talented player at a more impactful position than defensive tackle. This is not Aaron Donald we're talking about. This is not a guy who is, just eating up double teams on every single play. He can handle a few double teams a game, but he's not handling multiple double teams in a single drive and making the impact that way.
Quadruple teamed against the
He's
Seahawks.
certainly not handling a quadruple team. There is absolutely no way that Dexter Lawrence will do that one time in his career, much less multiple times a game the way that Aaron Donald could do. So, this, they had to do something, I guess.
They already tried firing the coordinator, right?
But, I don't think that this is a move that is going to move the needle in a positive direction on a net scale, right? He makes the defense better than it would have been without Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
But it might actually make the defense worse than it would be if they had used the first-round pick on a defensive end, on a cornerback, somebody who can have more of an impact.
I will say though, the Ravens had been just running all over the Bengals the last few years. When the Ravens have decided to hold on to the ball after running right through them.
Who are your running backs?
The
Ravens.
I mean, Derrick Henry.
Okay. Do you think Dexter Lawrence is going to slow down Derrick Henry?
Probably, especially if the Ravens' guards are as bad as they've been, right? Derrick Henry just topples over, gets tackled in the backfield all the time.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Derrick Henry also has the speed to run outside, where Dexter Lawrence is not going to make a mark.
Well, I guess getting back to the overall point, I think the Bengals. You build your team front to back and inside out. So getting a good defensive tackle is a good place to start. I don't know that, like you said, Corey, this moves the needle to turn them from a bad defense into
No,
a
you
good
spent
one.
too much for that position. You can get a good defensive
But they-
tackle
I mean, they
day
drafted-
2 in the draft.
They drafted Miles Murphy in the first round, who, some people on a certain podcast that was recorded in this building that night thought he was going to be really good, and he hasn't been. So,
It was definitely you. It wasn't me, and it definitely wasn't Corey. So,
yeah. So, you do what you got to do.
yeah. So I mean, I get what both of you guys are saying, Corey. Like, the way I see it is, this has to be viewed as independent of what happened with Trey Hendrickson, because Hendrickson was gonna require a bag no matter what, and you lose free agents all the time. Players come and go. I think that by itself, this move is adequate. They gave up a decent amount of draft capital, but I'm sort of the belief that draft picks are a little overrated. Like
They're lottery tickets.
like you rely on draft picks to sort of sell hope more so than actually be able to reliably rebuild your team. Like you said, Corey, you can do that with later round draft picks if you hit them. But whether you hit them or not is maybe some degree of skill, maybe some degree of luck, but there's still opportunity for the Bengals. For what they got an excellent player. And he's not going to make their team a juggernaut by himself, because no defensive player is capable of doing that. Not even Aaron Donald could do that if he was surrounded by 10 bums. But he's a piece.
Aaron Donald would make this team a whole lot better than
Aaron
Dexter
Donald
Lawrence
is the
can.
greatest defensive player of the 21st century. So, yeah, I'm sorry that he's not him, but that guy's not available. He's chilling, doing something else more fun than
I
play
don't
football.
think Aaron Donald is chilling. I'm sure he's still looking chiseled from marble and, just...
I'm not saying he's getting fat. I'm just saying
Yeah.
he's having a good time, I'm sure,
Yeah.
with post-football career. But anyway, let's talk about A.J. Brown a little bit, because he's another big piece where nothing's really been finalized with what's happening with him, but the heavy rumors have been from a particular reporter, especially...
It's getting hot and heavy.
Yes, that A.J. Brown was being mapped to the New England Patriots, which makes sense in a lot of ways. The Patriots were deficient at receiver, especially with Stephon Diggs now possibly. He was released, and he's got all sorts of problems legally right now, so his return was unlikely. And, of course, the connection with A.J. Brown and Mike Vrabel from their Tennessee days, where Vrabel was very upset that A.J. Brown was traded on draft night.
Yep, another draft night that we were
We
covering
were
live,
there.
and we gave our
This is
immediate reactions
Was that
to
the
that
same
trade.
draft night that somebody was sitting on a toilet
was
in
taking
the
a
corner?
dump. No, that was the one before. I'm pretty sure. Yes, one of Vrabel's family members was taking a dump previously, but and then the Titans GM took a dump all over Vrabel and traded his best player. So
Yeah.
that was awesome. But anyway, AJ Brown would obviously make the Patriots significantly better, assuming he's able to thrive there. Where we know AJ Brown's been a little temperamental the last few years, but I've always kind of felt personally that, we hate on diva wide receivers all the time, guys who want the ball and things like that. What other profession are you not allowed to want to, do your thing?
Yeah.
Like, imagine, like, if you were working at a job where it's like, they're like, hey, you like to design roads, and that's your career passion.
Yeah.
And instead they were like, you know what, we're gonna focus on something else, and you'll do a little of that, but we're gonna have you mostly just kind of
Get the coffee.
yeah, you're the coffee guy or whatever. You would probably like kind of want to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And not only that, AJ Brown was immensely impactful when he got the ball.
Yes.
So it wasn't like he was suggesting, hey, let's do something that's not going to help us win. It's just a matter of, honestly, maybe the quarterback wasn't that good.
I mean, yeah, but like, the
come
then
on. I
think
reigning
that's-
Super Bowl MVP, it's kind of hard to complain about that guy.
I think
Well,
that's,
there's complaining about him a lot today.
So Philly fans are always complaining.
keep in mind, though, that in 2022, there was a great connection between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Like, Hurts had no problem getting the ball to A.J. Brown then. Brown had no problem getting the ball from Hurts then. So what changed?
Well, they got-
AJ Brown clanked a couple balls in their playoff game.
Well, he also, A.J. Brown was there, Jalen Hurts was there, Nick Sirianni was supposedly there, but
vibes
Shane
guy.
Steichen wasn't there anymore. And so the offensive coordinator leaves. They suck. They fire that offensive coordinator.
So maybe
they
it's a
bring another one.
coordinator issue.
But my point is, these dudes have been playing together for 5 years. Why do you need some coordinator to help you figure out how to throw it to that guy?
Why is the coach a glue guy? Right?
There should be enough in the recipe book for y'all to be able to cook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a hard time with the Jalen Hurts blaming because
You do?
yeah.
He's he makes all the money. That's the job of the quarterback.
We've seen him do it. We
what the
know
money's for.
So like something is going on that it does not have anything to do with his ability. And maybe it is his mentality. Maybe he's not putting the work in studying the film. That's certainly possible. But in terms of saying that he doesn't have, like he can't do it, that's utterly ridiculous. And I see so much of that.
I get the sense that all the drama in Philly's kind of much ado about nothing because there's always a bunch of drama in Philly. Like, they built a statue of the old coach and then fired him like a year and a half after that. Right?
I would be very curious to see
the
how
chili's always hot in Philly.
How AJ Brown does with Drake May. It would be very interesting to see that. I think that AJ Brown having less impact over the past couple of years is much more about AJ Brown because he's one of those guys who just has a big ego. He has one of the bigger egos amongst the wide receivers that are active today. And I don't think that he has been particularly successful at like steering that in a direction that actually makes him better. I think he spends a lot of time wallowing in his drops, his not getting targets, whatever it is. He lets that get to him in a way that a lot of other ego-driven receivers that we've seen in our lifetimes have not done that.
I was wallowing as he wasn't getting any targets on my fantasy team, and I had to trade him like in week 4. But anyway, yeah, I think that there is something to be said about this, though, because A.J. Brown broke out with Tennessee, and he did so because he was a dominant play-action pass catcher with Ryan Tannehill. And
yes, I'm well aware.
Something that is unequivocally true about Jalen Hurts is he has refused to up his game when it comes to playing out of play action because he is too scared to turn his back on the defense. And that's the men from boys thing in the NFL is, can you turn your back on the defense and then when you turn back around, you still know what's going on? He has not wanted to do that, and there are reports that he refuses to learn how to do that because he thinks he's good enough as he is. Maybe he is. He's won the Super Bowl. He's won the Super Bowl MVP, but man, I'm a believer that you should always want to get better. And that, yes, I think, is a legitimate gripe that the Eagles can have with him. If he's just saying, this is who I am, this is how I play, it is what it is, I don't think that's good enough.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's not a healthy mentality for an athlete to have. Once you reach one threshold of success, you're supposed to want to go for the next one. That's part of being a competitor.
Well,
yeah. If you're not going for the next one, then you might as well
retire at that point because if you've already reached the pinnacle of whatever excellence you're going to attain in your career, you may as well go ahead and retire and save your body from any injuries that are going to affect the way that you can live the rest of your life.
That's $3.99 Whopper Wednesday. Right. That's what that is. Okay, you have to be continually striving for the next thing.
Yeah, it's also particularly nauseating with that juxtaposed with Jalen Hurts' quote-unquote leadership style is that of a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan.
He does not have a Mamba mentality.
Would Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan ever just say, you know what, I'm good, I'm not going to improve my game? They improved their game as long as they could play basketball.
Yeah.
So you might, if you lead that way, let's face it, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were not great leaders because of how they're interacted with teammates. They were great leaders because they were great at what they did.
Yes.
Like they got away with being able to act like a bunch of jerks and punch teammates or belittle teammates like they did because they were that special and because they put the work in and they at least led by example in that way. Jalen Hurts, you can't pull that if you're just gonna but I don't want to play out of play action. Like that's crazy.
Imagine if a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant type was on this team. Like it would blow up even more. Like if you find out that the quarterback is, okay with plateauing as a player.
Oh, that wouldn't go over well at all.
No.
It's already not going over well because, as you said, Evan, the chili is always hot.
Yes.
Philly. So, but we will see what happens here because, again, A.J. Brown, I think, has some valid complaints, but the Eagles also have had a ton of success, so they're not really interested in just blowing the whole thing up.
No.
So we'll see how this plays out. And, again, they're going to be good anyway, so... but it's always interesting in Philly, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are actually what the Cowboys pretend to be, where everybody hypes up the Cowboys every year just because they get clicks. But the Eagles are actually kind of fascinating every year because, one, they're good, and two, they're doing this stuff all the time. Like they can't just be good for 5 years quietly.
This good and this chaotic at the same time.
And yet they do it.
Yeah.
That's the MO.
Yeah.
But speaking of A.J. Brown to the Patriots and his connection with their head coach, Mike Vrabel, this information has been put out there a lot by another reporter who apparently has some strong connections with Mike Vrabel, and that is Dianna Russini, the now former NFL reporter working for The Athletic. She resigned recently and left a statement saying, basically, everybody's being a jerk and I did nothing wrong, but I'm quitting. And the reason she's quitting is because of some photographs that popped up of her and Mr. Mike Vrabel interacting. I used the word canoodling on the chat. That might have been a little extreme because canoodling usually involves a little more deliberate action than what we saw in the pictures.
More deliberate than going to a couple's resort.
And holding hands and whatnot. Yes.
Weren't they in a swimming pool or something?
Yes, it was pretty clear what was going on. They weren't.
You can't tell me
anybody.
nothing's going on. It's like, oh, we were just, sightseeing.
Some questions for sure. But anyway, this has resulted in, for both sides, really, a lot of drama and a little bit of a scandal. Mike Vrabel made a statement, I believe today, at a press conference discussing his involvement. It was a bunch of word salad. Not really taking a whole lot of direct responsibility, but talked about how he handled it with his family beforehand, which is probably good. Like, you probably want to take care of your home stuff privately, despite what some people wanted it all out in public, which I'm like, let's not do that. But Vrabel appears to be secure in his job, much to my chagrin as the Grim Reaper of coaches. After he wins Coach of the Year, and I might have still gotten him fired, but Dianna Russini, who has been a well-known reporter in the NFL for a long time now, seemingly on the outs and probably unemployable at this point.
Yeah. I struggle with some aspects of this. And I don't want to say too much because a lot of this is still kind of playing out. We don't necessarily know exactly what the end result is going to be, but like, as of now, Russini's resigned from her job, so we at least have that resolution. And it seems like Vrabel's, secure, as you said, but there is a double standard in our society, and I'm sure that this is being talked about. She's out of her job, Vrabel's not. How is that fair? And I get that. I think that this is a situation that we have to consider some of the nuances to it. What Vrabel did, if there was a relationship between them that was inappropriate, which there very well may have been, it's a bad look. It's not illegal. It's certainly not something that should get Mike Vrabel fired as a head coach, and certainly not by the Patriots and Robert Kraft, because
of all people,
we know that he's done much worse.
At least
on the day of an AFC
Vrabel
championship
waited
game.
till after the season, right? Like Kraft was on his way from Boston to Kansas City,
and
via Florida.
Vrabel was with a woman who, as far as we can tell, was consensually engaging in whatever their relationship was, whether it was professional, not professional, way not professional, whatever that was. the people that Robert Kraft was dealing with were very likely not there of their own choosing and of their own free will. At least some of them. So
Robert Kraft should run for president.
maybe Robert Kraft should not be the owner of the New England Patriots. But that's neither here nor there because that's a separate situation, and we have talked about that a little bit on the show before.
Yeah, 8
We've
years ago when it happened. Or whatever it was, yeah.
As far as Dianna Russini, would she have been fired if she didn't resign? My guess is that she probably would have been, because I have a hard time believing that she would have resigned from a job that she legitimately enjoys doing if there was not some writing on the wall that she saw. And this may have been a situation of, you can resign or we can let you go.
Right.
That very well may have been the case. Don't love that for her. However, in her profession, there is a certain standard and a certain etiquette that is expected and required of journalists in order for their reporting, any content that they publish, to be trusted by the public. You cannot have personal relationships with the people that you are or may be covering. If you have a personal relationship like that with somebody in the NFL in a position like Mike Vrabel has as a head coach, you are now, it's a conflict of interest for you to cover the NFL if there is any chance that at some point you might have to cover something regarding the Patriots, which if you're covering the NFL, you kind of have to, especially because the Patriots are good again, much to some of our chagrins.
AFC champions, yes.
So that is something that cannot be. If you have a situation where you're already in, you're married to an NFL head coach and you're a journalist and you're trying to get into that industry, do I think that should automatically disqualify you from getting into it? Maybe not, but there have to be some disclosures. And this is something that this was not being disclosed. This is something that whatever they were doing, it got disclosed or unclosed by, it sounds like a private investigator, possibly. It's very good, Evan. Yeah. So it is a worse look for her from a professional standpoint. And so I don't view this as the typical double standard that on the surface it may appear to be.
No, I agree. Like, there's a difference between a head coach and a journalist, and this is where there's a boundary for her, but not necessarily for him, just because of what they do for a living. Again, if an owner wants to fire you because he's, Mr. Good Catholic guy or whatever, and he doesn't want anybody participating in extramarital affairs,
feels like it's a bad look on the team, and therefore
the
bottom line.
That is at the owner's discretion if they want to do that. But clearly, again, Bob Kraft would be a world-class hypocrite for that. Not only because of his own indiscretions, but frankly, his previous head coach, Bill Belichick, I don't know if he ever cheated on his estranged wife at any point, but he was constantly running around with women half his age. Like, even before his current situation where a woman is a third of his age. Like, it was a thing with him. And
is she a third of his age? I thought she was younger than that.
She's 24. He's 72.
Yeah, basically.
So I think it's like
it's like almost
right
dead on.
there. Yeah. It's either way. He's got her by almost 50 years. Like, that's good for him, I guess. But
I mean,
but it's still it's scandalous in its own way, even if it's not necessarily, what you would call illegal, or perhaps if you feel a certain way, it might not even be considered unethical. But
Jordan Hudson is, as of a few weeks ago, 25, so she's now officially more than a third of his
happy
age.
Happy birthday to Jordan Hudson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 25.
Yeah, she is. She's. I think I mentioned this, that she's kind of growing on me just because she's so locked in on being Team Bill that she's like just petty and hates on these old farts that have wronged Bill. So
Bill Polian.
Yeah, like or Bob Kraft. Like, it's just funny that it's like this person who was she even alive when the Patriots won their first Super Bowl?
No, not if she just turned 25.
Yeah, exactly. Math. Maybe, because they won in 2002.
Yeah.
So she might have been
was
just
born.
Yeah, she was born in April of 2001.
So she was like our age, the same age we were when the Commodes last won the Super Bowl, basically.
No,
Or at least me.
no, the Patriots won in the 01 season,
Yeah.
which happened in 2002.
So she was born almost a year before that.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I did the math wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, the point is,
Yeah.
that's funny.
I doubt she remembers it.
And we were not really planning on talking about that part of things, so let's move on. Cause
Belichick's coming back for year 2 at UNC.
I didn't think he was going to make it to year
Shocking.
1. I thought he was going to be not
He's not
coaching.
coaching
He was not going to
in
make
week
it to
0.
Labor Day, and he's going to make it to next Labor Day. It's craziness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, we have adequately filibustered for 40 minutes here because, full disclosure, we are not as prepared as we would have liked to be for this draft primer. That's why we're only spending 20 minutes on it. But like we said, we typically do a very, very in-depth coverage of the first round of the draft by doing a bunch of player evaluations, but obviously that's not really appropriate for an hour-long podcast, so we're not going to do that. But we are going to talk a little bit about maybe what we expect to see on Thursday and Friday and Saturday if you have time.
Especially for our teams. And certainly, next week we can jump into, just looking back at who took who. And we'll have, I think, more to say at that point.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to start with just real quick is quarterbacks, because we know Fernando Mendoza is going number 1.
Yeah.
That's been locked since, December?
Yeah.
Maybe earlier. So he's won 1 to the Raiders, but there's talk about, I think Ty Simpson is the consensus number 2 guy, which doesn't inspire me personally.
Doesn't have a lot of starting experience.
He has 15 starts, and half of them were bad.
It's not great.
It's a rough ratio.
Some of the good starts were, Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin, right? Like
Mercer, somebody like that.
Yeah,
if we want to talk about quarterbacks after Mendoza who I think have more upside, like a shot to be impactful at the NFL level, I'd rather put my money on guys like Carson Beck or Garrett Nussmeier.
I'm not putting my money on those guys either.
I'm just saying, if I had to put my money on somebody after Mendoza to potentially be decent, those are the 2 that I would pick out of the rest of the field.
Okay, that's not a high bar to clear. Because Carson Beck,
26.
He's
I mean,
almost as old as us.
The age thing doesn't really concern me at this point. Bo Nix has been pretty strong, and he was in the league forever. Brandon Weeden was like 28 when he came into the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was drafted by the Browns, so you knew that was.
Didn't he serve in the military or something beforehand?
I thought he played baseball.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? I thought it was the military. That
it was in the military.
It was like Ted Williams or something. Ted Williams. Or Willie Mays out here, just like, oh my goodness.
Could have had 900 home runs if it wasn't for the war.
Yeah. The 2 wars that Ted Williams fought in. He fought in World War II and in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. The war's
crazy.
Plural. My goodness.
Ty Simpson, like he declared for the draft because he was about to get benched at Alabama, right? Like they have some freshman, somebody or whoever who's going to take his job, and Ty Simpson, who's not that young anymore, he could have transferred to some other school for, I think a 5th year, right? But like, at some point at the college level, you have to be good enough to leave. Like if you just stick around forever and ever, that's a problem too. So he's okay. I liked his touch throws that I saw an hour ago. He throws with touch, but like some stuff was off platform for no reason. Like he was sort of ducking an imaginary hit a couple times, like in the highlights. Let's see. So like he got hurt. He had a back injury in the second half of the year. Took a bunch of pain pills, which eroded his stomach lining. And he lost a bunch of weight because he couldn't digest any food.
Well, it's
kind of important.
Not quite a GLP-1 there, but my goodness.
So I describe him as a nervous bird, who makes things look hard when they shouldn't be.
All right, well, so
frenetic.
So I'm not expecting Ty Simpson to be picked in the first round on Thursday.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but
more than one quarterback is going to be selected in the first round.
You think so? I don't know.
I think the Cardinals are going to be drafting a quarterback.
At 3? Wow.
I think they might, or I think they might trade back and try and get a haul for that third pick.
The Cardinals picking anybody is a predictable disaster.
Oh yeah. Well, that's part of the reason. That's part of the reason why I don't believe in some of these quarterbacks, because one of them is probably going to the Cardinals. One of them is probably going to go to the Jets, if not in the first round, then later in the draft.
Predictable disaster.
Right. So my real prediction is whichever one of them doesn't go to one of those teams has the best chance of being decent in the long run.
My concern here is that I think that even for teams as bad as the Jets and the Cardinals, both in present day and throughout history,
all of history,
like 150 combined years of suck.
Literally like 1 year for each of them.
Yeah, I mean, and the 1 year for the Jets was a lucky. They won the Super Bowl. It's like, but they weren't supposed to.
Right.
But anyway, I think they're picking too early for even their dumbasses to reach on a quarterback. But I also think that it's hard to encourage a team to give up a ton of picks to move up when there isn't like a blue chip quarterback in the draft either. So
True.
I think you're more likely to see those teams just take the best available player because they need players everywhere.
That may be.
So we'll see how that goes. But I certainly don't think anybody other than Mendoza's worth a first round pick.
But
somebody might reach. The Steelers might reach. Because the Steelers, they're being held hostage by Aaron Rodgers for a second straight year.
Right, the guy who constantly bemoaned his predecessor in Green Bay doing the same damn thing year after year.
Yeah, and now he's with Mike McCarthy again?
Yes.
Evan's having the time of his life over here watching.
By the way,
the Steelers
shout out Mike Tomlin going to NBC.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That
should be fun.
He's going to be great
gonna be really
television.
Fun.
He might never leave. He might just do TV until.
I wouldn't complain. I'll be interested to see what his role is, if he's going to be in the studio or in the booth. But either way, I'm looking forward to that.
I assumed he'd be in the studio, but we'll see.
That's my guess, because that seems to be where they tend to put
coaches
guys, at least initially. Tony Dungy was in the studio for a while. They've had
Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett.
I think he's pretty good on there.
Yeah, Jason Garrett's pretty good on there.
He's okay there. I hate it when he's in the booth, though.
I agree. In the studio, he's gotten better, and I think that he and Mike Tomlin together would be a pretty good pair.
Like a three-man? You mean in the studio?
In the studio,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
It's also the Cowboys-Steelers thing, just historically.
I don't think Jason Garrett qualifies as part of any type of valuable Cowboys history. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Well, wasn't Jason Garrett a player on?
Yes, he was for some of the good teams, but he's a backup.
Yeah, and that's why Jerry loves him, because Jerry just
the
you're a
clapper.
Cowboy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the clapper.
All right, so let's real quick before we get to our teams. There's really like one blue chip running back in this draft, is Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
And there was expectation potentially for a little while that my New Orleans Saints might be interested in him with the 8th pick, but they decided to acquire Travis Etienne, not Travis Etienne, Travis Etienne, which obviously would
no longer your boy Corey.
Yeah, which would remove any need for the Saints to draft a running back, so that they're probably off the board for him. But some people have him mocked to the Giants.
That would be very interesting, considering the Giants already have a decent running back room. I mean, if he comes back healthy, they like Scadaboo a lot.
Horrible injury.
But if he's healthy, he may be healthy in time for the season.
Well, he also might not stay healthy with the way he rams his
His
head
lack
into
of brain.
everything. Yeah,
That's fair. But didn't the Giants also... They got somebody
they
else,
had Tyrone
didn't they?
Tracy, too.
No, I know they had Tyrone Tracy, and I think he's still with them, but I thought they got somebody else.
I want to say like Devin Singletary, but that's not right.
He's with is he still in the league? Because
I don't
he was with the Bills.
He's been with like all the blue
Yeah,
teams.
He's moved around.
Okay, I guess they didn't bring anybody else. I mean, that could be an interesting fit for him, but like...
Have the Giants learned nothing? Right? Like they're picking in the top 5 again, and they're gonna go, oh, we should get this stud running back. Like, how does that help you win long term? Drafting a running back, particularly drafting one up high, that's a vanity acquisition, right? Like you draft your running back when your quarterback and offensive line are good.
I think the only time I've seen in recent history a team draft a running back early and it really worked out was the Cowboys drafting Ezekiel Elliott.
Yes.
And that's because
Yeah.
they had a good team or a good roster, but Romo was injured the previous year.
Yeah.
And so it created, a bad record for the Cowboys. So
And
the
I
next
was at
year-
that draft,
Yeah.
and that pick drew
So
laughter from the
to that
sort of,
end, there's a few teams before the Saints pick at 8 who I think would probably take him before he would fall to them anyway. So even if the Saints were still interested in him, or if they hadn't added Travis Etienne, I don't think that Love would have made it to him because he's got to get through the Titans at 4, who I think could take him. I don't know if that would be a great spot for him, but they would love to pair him with their young quarterback. The Giants, as you said, at 5. You've also got the Washington Commanders at 7. And I think that could be a really good landing spot for him, especially with Chris Rodriguez leaving this offseason. That running back room is wide open, and there is talent on that team. We assume that they're going to bounce back from a really disappointing 2025 season, at least a little bit. They're not going to be as bad as they were this past season. They may not, it may not be all the way back to that really fun rookie season for Jaden Daniels that we saw in 2024, but I think they will be better this coming year. And if they have somebody like Jeremiah Love, that I think really rounds out the offense in a really nice way.
Yeah, but I think that even when they went to the NFC Championship 2 years ago, their defense was bad, and they had a lot of holes on defense. So I think they're going to prioritize
defense is going to be an issue, and so they might prioritize that side. But I think that they can prioritize that side through the course of the entire draft, while still potentially taking Jeremiah Love early. If he's available at 7, I think they'd be foolish not to take him. I mean, this is a situation kind of like the Lions a few years ago, when I was not really sold on them taking Jahmyr Gibbs because we really needed defensive players. I wanted them to take a defensive tackle instead of a running back, and it turns out Jahmyr Gibbs is that guy, and they were absolutely right to take him. Now, has our defense suffered a little bit since then? Sure, but a lot of that has been injuries.
It's mostly injuries.
It's been mostly injuries. But, when you don't have elite skill players all across the board, you've got to gather them up when they're available. There's plenty of defensive players that you can develop. Defensive players develop, I think, more easily than a lot of offensive players do.
I mean,
they're still dart throws. It's still a lottery ticket. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there is a lot more room for growth at the NFL level for defensive players than for offensive players.
But I also feel that Jaden Daniels is a running threat at quarterback. I feel like that always helps the running game. Like, we've seen the Ravens not necessarily have great running backs.
So the argument being that they don't need a Jeremiah Love, they don't need that level of running back. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair argument. But I think that having somebody like Jeremiah Love is going to elevate the running game so much more, having a running threat at quarterback than just having any schmo.
Well, and because we've
back.
also seen it with the Ravens where they did great with Gus Edwards and whoever the hell else, Justice Hill, when he wasn't fumbling.
Oh my God.
We also didn't see Jaden Daniels when he was healthy this year running the ball that much.
But we also saw the Ravens took it to another level when they got Derrick Henry. So there is an extra gear you can get to.
Yes.
I'm just not sure that they would try to chase that at the expense of maybe getting a corner or a safety or somebody like that.
They might not, but I think that they would be. I think that it would be a smart pick for them to take Jeremiah Love if he's available there at 7.
They better nail the rest of the draft.
He might not even make it to 7 again. We'll have to see what happens before that. Yeah.
So let's talk our teams. My team has the first pick among our 3. The Saints are picking at 8, as I mentioned, which is kind of crazy because it felt like we were a pretty good football team for the last 6 weeks of the year.
You were a good
they
football team for the last
division
6
lead,
but
they were picked in the 20s.
No, the Saints wound up being last place.
We were in last place, but
it was like by
we were all
2
separated
games
by
and,
like 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
And if we had started Tyler Shuck earlier, we probably won that
But
division.
that's one of suck.
And I did, and so far I've been incorrect. He's been pretty good.
That's one of the things that can make the Saints kind of interesting next year is that division is wide open, and you guys get to play the 4th place schedule out of that division.
Honestly,
I'm going to be so happy.
I think the Saints win the division.
I don't think that is a hot take at all. I think that's a layup in my opinion.
I think playoff football.
I think the best thing that happened for us was the fact that Tyler Shuck actually turned out to be decent, which means we didn't have to go try to reach for a quarterback this year. We can just draft.
You don't have to draft
players.
Ty Simpson.
So even if Shuck, regresses or whatever, then maybe next year we could look for a quarterback. But if he's still good, we're like, okay, it's 2 years now of sample size. Let's roll with him for a bit and see what happens, and we might actually have a decent little run with Tyler
I think
Shuck.
the Buccaneers are the only team that are a real threat to win that division over the Saints, and there's a lot of question marks about the Buccaneers that make me not confident in them.
Tom Brady's not walking through that door.
I'm not sold on Todd Bowles.
Unfortunately, I'm not either. I love Todd Bowles.
I think
really
he could have easily been fired
yeah,
this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the Saints are going receiver because they've got Chris Olave, but they're kind of
who
thin.
by the way, had a huge resurgence this past year. It was great to see.
When his brain is
Chris
unscrambled.
Olave and
Imagine not having
Mike
Derek
Trout
Carr
both
as your
having
quarterback.
Good years at the same time after years of just injuries and
Imagine
not being good.
this is and when people are saying, "Oh, Derek Carr might come out of retirement," I'm like, Chris Olave should be Exhibit A of why that should never be allowed to happen.
Olave's going to go into retirement if Carr comes out.
Olave is going to go into Derek Carr's house and break his shin to make sure that never happens to anybody else again. He's gonna Tonya Harding him. Yes, my goodness, just. And I think Derek Carr is actually a decent dude, but just, man, he's a hospital ball machine. And not always
Where's
the most
Mike
accountable.
Thomas? Where's Can't Guard Mike?
That was such a disappointing fall, like just precipitous fall from being such an elite wide receiver to just being just gone.
Injuries.
He wasn't there.
Injuries, man. Like, it's a physical game. It's
So
tough.
almost
out
so
there.
disappointing because
Almost as bad
he
as
was
Josh
so
Gordon.
Good.
Well, Josh Gordon was doing too many drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
He was
Josh
Gordon was going to be
issue.
great, and then
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about y'all's
puff
teams.
of smoke.
Evan, your team picks at 14.
Currently, yeah.
At the moment, we'll see if there's any
Movement.
magic here, but
Lies and shenanigans.
I will let you speak to it, but I think it's kind of obvious what you guys need.
I mean,
Priority.
it's obvious as the right guard just standing there by himself, not blocking anybody, while Lamar's running for his life again. It's pretty obvious. So the Ravens have to go offensive line here. People were suggesting, they could go receiver or they could go tight end. I'm like, if Eric DeCosta picks a receiver or a tight end on Thursday night, he should be packing his stuff on Friday morning, right? That is malpractice, sir. It really is. After watching this offensive line, so I looked at Vega Ioane out of Penn State, the guard. He's 6'4", 320, 32 3/4 inch arms. So his arms are long enough to play guard. He moves his feet like an athlete. Imagine that at the NFL level.
Imagine a football player moving like an athlete.
Well, Falele didn't move at all. Right?
He moved. He spun around a lot and then blocked his own guy.
Yeah.
I saw that happen.
Yeah. And the Steelers pretty obviously took advantage of that. I remember because we were there, Eric. They
We were
blitzed like a defensive back who just scooted right around him. Let's see. He comes in like a wrecking ball when pulling. He stoned some poor UCLA guy in the highlight that I saw, more than an hour ago now. He was pulling from the left to the right, and the UCLA defensive end was over there and just completely flattened. He hands out pancakes a lot. This is the guy or the type of guy the Ravens need to get.
Yeah, the guy I was looking at for the Ravens, he might not last that long though. Is Spencer Fano from Utah.
Yeah,
he's pretty versatile. He can play guard,
tackle.
He can play tackle. His arm's a little short for tackle.
Oh,
but he can play guard, and he's shown interest in playing center, which
need one of those too.
So, but he's currently being mocked as going probably 10 or 11, so he might not make it to Baltimore. But Gordy, your team probably has similar needs. Your offensive line's kind of been overturned quite a bit. But what do you think the Lions are going to do at 17?
So, I haven't looked at any specific players yet. I figure, through the draft, I'll take a look at the players that we actually take and give my opinions next week on whether I feel like we we hit on them. But as far as the positional needs, we have got to get the offensive line right this year. That was the number one thing holding us back on offense this past year, in my opinion, because the skill position players are fantastic. We have maybe the best set of skill position players in the NFL on the whole. And obviously we're losing David Montgomery this year, so we'll have to see what the running back room looks like, along with Jahmyr Gibbs. I know we brought somebody in, and I'm forgetting right now off the top of my head who we added, but we definitely brought somebody, somewhat impactful name, I guess. I'll figure it out. But anyway, at quarterback, I still believe in Jared Goff, but we have to keep him upright because when he is under pressure, he has a tendency to really struggle. And
Isaiah Pacheco.
Yes, it was. Okay, so yeah, that's not exciting.
Runs like he bites people.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's why I didn't remember because I blocked it from my memory.
He bit you too.
Something like that, I
Vice
guess.
kneecaps will fit right in, I guess.
So I know we brought in some offensive linemen earlier this offseason. We brought in Cade Mays, Larry Borum, who Dan Campbell seems to be particularly excited about. We brought in Ben Barch. We can never have enough offensive linemen. I think we need to draft at least one or two more offensive linemen so that we can have legitimate competitions through training camp and make sure that we have the right combination and some good depth because we've been dealing with some injuries to the offensive line over the past year. And we need to make sure that those holes are ready to be shored up immediately if and when they show up. Outside of the offensive line, I don't think we really need to address anything on offense, and I'd rather see us put more of our focus on defense. I think we need a good edge rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson. He was incredible this past season, especially coming off of that injury that he suffered in 2024. And then I think we need a cornerback.
Yeah, your secondary seems like one guy gets hurt and it's just a free fall.
Yeah, it just falls apart. So we brought in I forget his first name, but Muhammad from the Buccaneers at cornerback in free agency, who I think is
Muhammad.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's not him.
No. But we definitely could use an additional cornerback and maybe even a safety. Just again, mostly depth pieces because we have good players across the board, but injuries decimate us, and we have to have better depth this year because this is now a 2-year trend with the injuries piling up, especially on defense, and that seems to be something that doesn't just like go away. Once you kind of have that moniker on your team where you're injury prone, you wind up dealing with that every year. And that's one of the things that the 49ers have been incredibly successful at is that they rack up a bunch of injuries, but they have depth, and so they wind up still being competitive more often than not.
Well, they've got that facility near Santa Clara, so it's causing a bunch of problems.
At least we don't
to
have
be
that.
fair, I did look on Google Earth. The 49ers facility has been right there next to the substation or whatever for years and years and years. This isn't Levi's Stadium, recent decade type issue.
All right, well, I'm still going to believe it just because it's more fun.
Yeah, and they're knocking down an amusement park right there.
I'm still
That's
not going
true.
to believe it because I don't do conspiracy theories, generally.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes. All right. Well, that does it for our show this week. I hope you guys all enjoy the NFL draft. Watch Thursday and Friday and Saturday. I wonder if any parrots will be having the moment get too big for them when they're supposed to make a pick. But hopefully that's not the case. Can't wait. It's always an exciting time. We've got playoff basketball as well going on. Do that hockey if you're into that type of stuff. I actually haven't watched any of that either. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Shoutouts before we get rolling. Corey, you got anything?
Yeah, I'm going to give my shout out to Flash, the Chinese robot that broke the human half marathon record by 6 minutes this past week. I'm only giving this shout out because we love our robot overlords, and when they take over the world, I'm one of the good ones. So that's my shout out.
Well,
that's my sellout. There you go.
I'm gonna try to pivot as gracefully as I can from that. Shout out to all the workers at Hershey Park. I was up at Hershey on Saturday and had a great time. And then shout out, Garrett Anderson passed away.
Yes.
He was a lefty hitter for the Angels. Just a solid professional hitter. And he had some sort of, he wasn't particularly old. He was, I think, 53 years old.
53, yeah.
So he had some sort of episode or emergency, and sadly he's gone.
Yeah, I remember, not so fondly, Garrett Anderson wearing the Mariners out regularly. He had a sort of a rivalry with Jamie Moyer, where the first, however many matchups, Anderson was just hitting nukes off him nonstop. And then Moyer kind of figured him out for the last, 4 years of Jamie Moyer's 27 million year career or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was a stud hitter. I was jealous of the Angels for having somebody like that in the middle of the lineup for as long as they did. But he was a great one, and it seemed like he was a great guy too. So gone too soon for sure. My shout out to Stephen Curry and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr, who very possibly played their last playoff game together in their play-in loss to the Suns. But
they lost.
But the more
they won the first play-in game and then lost.
Yeah,
the
the more
second.
compelling win was against the Clippers, where they won the game. Steph had 35 points, and as I mentioned previously on the show, Draymond Green kind of put Kawhi Leonard in the clamps for 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. And this isn't like, Kawhi's old, who cares? Kawhi had the best season of his career this year.
Oh, really?
And Draymond erased him in crunch time. So, sort of maybe a little bit of a message to people out there. It's like, we could still do it. We just need, we need to rebuild the roster. But it seems like that era has come to an end in some capacity. It's doubtful that all three of them will be back. So we'll see what happens to them. But it's been a hell of a run for that unit. So shout out to them. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. You can reach us at thesportsballers@gmail.com if you want to provide us feedback or topic ideas or anything, really. We don't care. We'll take it. You can also follow us on Twitter at sportsballers18. You can get this podcast on Spotify. You can get it on Apple. You can watch or listen live on YouTube if you prefer that. And if you have a podcatcher that we are not on, let us know and we will do our best to get that accommodated for you. You can follow us individually. Corey is at Corey Puffett. I am at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We'll be back next week to recap what we saw in the NFL draft, which will be at its completion. We will also have more NBA stuff. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of baseball, although the season is still quite young. But until then, as always, take it easy.